To our second webinar in 2025 for Governance Dynamics. I'm Mohammed Husari, the Senior Executive Director at Governance Dynamics. And this takes part of our monthly webinar that will take place during 2025. So welcome everyone, and we're so happy to see that it's taking a good momentum. We are having registrations and people joining us from the 6 continents all over the place. So it's really exciting. And today we will be taking really a bold leap into the next decade, exploring how AI will be reshaping our world in ways that maybe we never imagined. And focusing on governance, risk management and compliance, ethics, real life adoption, professional adoption. We will try with our esteemed expert and speaker to uncover the blind spots, the challenges, and the game-changing opportunities that AI will provide us on a corporate level and on a professional level. We will try to see if AI will be really transforming jobs or replacing them. Can companies go beyond checkbox and checklists AI governance, or really think about how integrating AI and build strategies comprehensively for this integration? And who will be really accountable for this success of AI integration? So we will try to answer all these questions today with Mr. Lee Dittmar. We are really honored to have him on this webinar. He is a seasoned executive advisor and thought leader with over 4 decades of experience in technology, strategy, analytics, and business transformation. He is a former leader at Deloitte, spearheaded GRC, analytics, enterprise governance, shaping the industry and best practices in the US and in different regions in Europe also. He is recognized globally for his expertise. He has been named among the top 25 consultants by Consulting Magazine and one of the 100 most influential people in finance for 3 consecutive years. He is actually an OSEC fellow, so he is at the forefront of AI governance and is a primary author for the essential guide of AI governance that will be published hopefully in the next fall. He is also a co-founder of Infinity Data AI, focusing on AI readiness, governance, and enterprise adoption. So I'm sure that Mr. Lee, he will give us really deep insights and deep information from the all the experience and knowledge that he has. So I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Lee Dittmar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you.
Before starting our webinar and the questions, I would like to mention that please follow us on LinkedIn. This is an opportunity for you to stay updated about our activities, publications, about webinars, and everything that is exciting and Governance Dynamics is doing. And also, you will be able to post your questions in the QA section in the Teams in front of you, so that our operations manager, Mr. Bilal Sidani, will be at the end asking some of these questions. And eventually also you will have the opportunity to ask your live questions. I will start by painting a picture. I don't want to say a fictional story, because I'm sure that it is realistic and it will take place, it will happen. But maybe this situation or this near future, maybe it will be faster than we expect. So I think that AI will be transforming our life, like internet, completely. Our life actually is completely different than the 1980s or 90s because of telecommunication and internet. And I think AI, with all the integrated technologies together, will shape our morning routine. So, Bilal, if you can just to go to the next slide. Okay, yeah. So our morning routine. So maybe AI, the alarm will be waking up based on our schedule, analyzing our schedule, analyzing our, let's say, the sleep quality, and accordingly, it will wake up on a certain on a certain time that suits our health situation. Maybe AI will suggest for us based on our, blood and nutritional details, our daily diet, for example. It will shape our work and productivity, our transportation. Maybe traffic with intelligent cars and intelligent transportation will be. We won't have any traffic anymore. Maybe we will have less accidents. Eventually, shopping services, for example, ordering online, making customized orders, for example, payments, everything will be transformed. Healthcare, lab tests, medication, information about medication, patient education, everything will be AI assisted. So maybe this will be not in 2030, maybe it will be in 2028 or 27, before that, because it's the speed of development is mind-blowing. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts about this, Mr. Dittmar, and we'll start after this with our questions.
No, great. Well, you paint a very, very exciting picture, Mohammed. And, you know, an interesting thing is that everything that you talked about is possible today. The technology exists to do all those things. What's missing and what will happen over the next few years is to scale it so that it can be available to the masses and to drive the cost down. So that is a reality. It is a for some people they're already living that way, leveraging the power of AI, and it's not science fiction, it's not fiction at all. It's just a matter of timing and how and where and who's involved in that. So thanks for that. Let me I know that um, let's look out a little further. And I one of the questions that you might have if you're listening to this is that, well, what might surprise us? Because you probably have heard about those things that Muhammad talked about. So, Bilal, put up the next slide, please. And you know, here here's a picture that goes beyond what Muhammad painted. One is that AI as the invisible arbiter of society. So, what does that mean? It means that AI is sort of orchestrating societal flows of information and communication and interaction. It's no longer just assisting us, it's quietly governing the world's micro movements from individual interactions to large scale societal coordination. Imagine that. And we don't even think about it. You know, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's more, but we won't even be consciously thinking about it. How about AI as the silent mediator of human conflict? Imagine a world where arguments rarely escalate, whether it's with your colleagues or spouses or even among nations, right? AI dispute resolution, right? Trained on legal frameworks, psychology, cultural values, negotiating tactics, can help us resolve conflicts before tensions boil over, before it becomes a big problem, right? And
Or eventually highlighting red flags, because knowing that these issues and red flags might escalate into conflicts or problems.
no, good point. That's right. AI interacting as an assistant to all of us to be more sensitive. How about that? AI to be more sensitive than humans. And then this is an interesting one. What if AI could replace personal memory? Because all of our memories are flawed, right? And subjective often, with dynamic recall, where AI supplements how we remember. And, maybe it's not a good thing, but maybe it helps to interpret even and rewrite how we remember. So, if AI can rewrite our past, wow, who controls the narrative of our lives, right? So these are some of the things in addition, Mohammed, to the things you shared that we can expect on the horizon.
Yeah. So actually, we planned for this webinar to have a focus on corporate, to have a focus specifically on GRC and how GRC function and GRC will be influenced by the AI integration, but also how this will change our professional at individual level, at team level practices and collaboration and integration. So we will be covering all these aspects during our webinar, also focusing on some of the key aspects of the technology and data related information. So I will start by asking you, Lee, uh, we often hear about AI transformation. We're hearing a lot about this AI transformation, integration. This is part on the agenda for so many companies, so many board of trustees. Yet, what are the blind spots of AI adoption? What are the things that we might overlook, or if we overlook, we will be underestimating the costs or the challenges or the barriers for success? How
Yeah.
can you like highlight this for us, please?
All right, great. Yeah, great question. Bilal, you can take the slide down, Bilal. So if I were to name only one blind spot, it would be the combination of three things happening simultaneously. The pervasiveness, sort of the scope of where AI plays, the magnitude of the change that will come, and the speed. So if you combine the pervasiveness, the magnitude, and the speed of change, this is going to surprise the majority of people. This is going to surprise, those of us that play in the world of GRC about how many new questions we have to ask and answer, about how many things will change, about both our new capabilities and the new types of risks that we have to consider. It's this combination. There's so much dialogue about it. You might think that everyone is very much appreciating and understanding what will happen. And my blunt point on this is that everyone's going to be surprised. Everyone's going to be surprised how much their lives change. Now, in terms of the things that we'll have to address, some specific things and maybe unintended consequences, Mohammed, I think that from a GRC standpoint, but by the time leaders recognize the impacts and implications of the new capabilities and understand critical risks, the question for us, might it be too late if we're not thinking about that now, if we're not transforming our thought process as these capabilities come in. Economic shocks are entirely possible, probably unavoidable. As even though we're going to work very hard for the transition of the workforce, entire job categories could be eliminated much faster than we've ever experienced, right? Another topic, and it's probably not a blind spot now, but I think we're going to be in for some surprises, and that is AI-driven misinformation and how it amplifies other crises that we have to deal with: political, economic, financial. So that's another big one to be having on your radar. As AI moves into autonomous decision making and action, a very hot topic right now is what we call agentic AI, an agent, not just doing analysis, not just producing reports or documents, but able to take action. And as more autonomy creeps into the AI and its physical interaction with the world through robotics and other mechanisms, will we experience the unwanted consequences of automation overconfidence? We're relying on it so heavily that we have not stepped back to really be sure that we've got the right oversight in place. And finally, I personally think that AI adoption is going to cause a new type of societal divide. The haves and the have-nots, those that are using AI fully and transforming their lives and getting the benefits, and those that are not. And in the those that are not, there will be two subcategories: those that choose not to, and those that don't have the access. So, Mohammed, these are some of the things that I see on the horizon that are could be blind spots for some, unintended consequences for others, but definitely something that we'll have to address.
Yeah. So yet I'm thinking about the micro and the macro, the internal and the external aspects of the integration and the readiness of the AI. And so whenever we are, adopting this technology internally, how much of disruption we can expect, systemic disruption, let's say internally, or how much we can have like an alignment and readiness of our suppliers, of our, key stakeholders externally also to interact successfully and effectively with this kind of technology. So how much this integration will be disruptive, or how can we avoid being disruptive on an internal or an external perspective?
Yeah, Mohammed, that's a great question. Well, I mean, let's think back to when COVID sort of, attacked the world and what that did to our supply chains, right? We were, I think, across the board surprised at how fragile, right? Because the global supply chain network were so intertwined, so interconnected that that the COVID virus caused these disruptions that just totally took our supply chain out of whack. AI could do the same thing for different reason, right? So AI optimized supply chains, right? Where AI we've set it up so it's going to really optimize, right? Well, if you over optimize and then you get some surprise, you're going to demonstrate that the supply chain you've put in place is brittle and things could break. An example, if a retailer uses AI to forecast just-in-time manufacturing, and then there's some unexpected geopolitical event, and there's no alternative suppliers in place because AI has optimized that, taken out the fat, taken out what it considered waste, and boom, we have a similar problem. AI-driven demand forecasting could create self-fulfilling shortages, right? Because one way that could happen is if the data that the forecasts are based on are biased or incomplete, or there's just some change that's happened in the short term that the AI interprets as a trend, and boom, the forecasting leads to shortages. Another one to think about is AI-generated supply chain attacks and manipulation. Bad actors could exploit blind spots, the adversarial threats from outside to manipulate global supply chain, right? Maybe they trick the system into over-ordering certain materials or under-ordering others, right? So this is a new type of risk that we have to address when we're heavily reliant on AI in these critical supply chain aspects, right? So, I mean, Mohammed, the biggest risk is if AI creates a false sense of security, right? If we get complacent and feel like, well, everything's fine, We know what what has happened to us everywhere in the world when we get complacent, when we think everything is peaceful, or when we think everything is set and fixed. So I think that over reliance is a big risk if we don't properly govern, manage the risk, deal with the compliance issues, right? So anyway, AI can enhance supply chain efficiency greatly, but it can also create hidden fragilities, fragileness that will only become visible when it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And based on what you are saying, I think that we all need some kind of a framework of a standard of regulation. Having a clear regulatory framework for AI integration uh, will help us protect consumers, ensure public safety, ensure fair competition, market stability, accountability. But we are seeing that AI is developing and advancing at an exceptional pace, exceptional speed, and maybe regulators are not able to follow on the same pace and speed. So how are we going to give like guidance, references, support to these companies to ethically, successfully integrate AI?
Well, you're right, Mohammed. AI is advancing at an exponential pace. And, you know, human beings have trouble with this whole thing of exponential, right? Um, Exponential change is not how our brains are wired, right? And it's certainly not how regulation, government, even change within an enterprise happens. That you have AI advancing at an exponential pace, and you have society and organizations in it, progressing at an organizational speed. So are regulations and governance frameworks keeping up? Not even close. And that is a real risk, right? So a couple of comments about that, right? Because, changes in governance, new regulations, new laws move at a crawl while the capabilities of AI are multiplying at the same thing. The gap, it isn't just an inconvenience. And it isn't one that will be easy to catch up to get ahead of. It's, in my opinion, it's dangerous. And we we're witnessing an experiment where technology is outpacing our ability to control it. And we've got to come to grips with that collectively, both private companies, government, academia. I think collaboration here becomes really important. But why is governance, lagging behind? Why is regulation lagging behind? It's just they're operating in the way they always have, right? While AI innovates, in months or weeks or days, government legislates in years. The EU AI Act has been under development for at least 5 years, probably a little longer. So by the time the laws, rules are drafted, the technology that they were meant to control has already morphed into something new, right? So I mean, I think that there's many examples where regulators and even enterprise leaders haven't fully comprehended AI's complexity. And what do I mean? Yes, AI is a technology, but this technology revolution is different. It's not just a program system. It's a constantly learning system, learning on its own. So traditional static regulations, rules, and policies are ineffective. Um, so whatever we do here, it has to be. We need dynamic governance. How about that, Mohammed? I just switched your company's name. Governance, dynamic governance is what we
Yeah,
need,
exactly. Yeah,
right?
it's a capability.
Exactly. And I mean, I don't have an answer for this one at all, and that's that global AI regulation. It's fragmented and conflicting, right? You've got a very comprehensive controlling EU AI Act. The US has sector-specific guidelines, but nothing overall. China has state-driven AI control, but there's no global standard. And there's so many companies that operate globally. So they're left dealing with a patchwork of conflicting rules. So anyway, if governance and regulation doesn't catch up, we're going to have AI black markets, right? Where if the regulations are either too slow or restrictive, AI innovation will go into the back alleys and unregulated spaces. Governments, I fear they'll overcompensate too late, regulating yesterday's problems more stringently. And we got it. So we have to innovate together. And
regulate with a vision. Regulate with a vision.
Absolutely. And this is why the collaboration is so important. So, and for our GRC professionals, what we don't want AI risk discovered too late, right? The financial crash of 2008 happened because regulators didn't fully understand the risk of those complex financial instruments until the system collapsed. And very few people were waving the flag. So that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. So in conclusion, if I may say, I think that we need to have our own framework, our own values, our own standards that are aligned with the best practices. Yet we don't want to wait for regulations, or else we will fall behind. And we will lose the opportunity of being competitive and leading the sector.
Yeah. Mohammed, you're exactly right. I just want to underscore that. You can't wait for the regulations to catch up. You have to see the direction, see the issues, see the things that are concerned. Don't be reactive. Put your governance framework in place now. Put your risk management frameworks in place now. Lead. Besides, regulators never start from scratch. They'll look at the leading companies, the leading organizations, right? And model their regulations after them.
Yeah, and get expert expertise also.
Yeah.
So if we go more deeper in from a practical perspective, like let's say, looking at data readiness as a major, I don't want to say an obstacle, but a hurdle, like a stage or a phase that we need to ensure for a successful AI adoption. What are the most practical steps or advices for enterprises that wants to start integrating AI and ensuring internal like infrastructure readiness, but also technological readiness?
Well, Mohammed, this is probably, in terms of using AI internally for your own business, for your own government, your own academia, this is the issue of the day. Data readiness is a major hurdle for AI adoption. So this is different than the large LLMs, the chat GPTs and the other big QEM and so on, which are, scraping data off of everything ever published and the internet. Putting AI, using AI inside of your organization requires your data to be ready. AI is only as valuable and the outputs are only as good as the data it's trained on. If we want to put, plain language queries onto our data, onto our enterprise data, we've got to be sure that we've overcome the challenges of data silos, the legacy systems, and data quality. In my opinion, this is the key foundational issue to the success of AI inside the enterprise. And to ensure trustworthy AI, enterprise data must be made AI ready. This is not like business intelligence on steroids. This is different. The AI is going to operate based on what the data is, okay? And, just a little trivia, 80% of AI project failures where they don't go into deployment are due to poor data quality, not bad algorithms, right? And it's just a reality that, many, perhaps most enterprises still rely on fragmented data infrastructures, creating massive inconsistencies in AI training data. All right, so that's the problem. Can it be fixed? Yes, yes. So first, I want to talk about the need to really put, intelligence into the data. And how do you do that? You've got to have an ontology that's industry, sector, and company specific. This defines the foundation, right? What is an ontology? It's a dynamic framework, organize and connect your data based on domain-specific meanings, your meanings and relationships, right? By embedding a robust ontology into the heart of your systems, you can ensure that your data processed, deeply understood, contextualized, and made actionable for AI applications. Now, this doesn't happen, just for the snap of the finger, and it's not something that you can do, just with human DBAs. You're going to need data agents. You're going to need autonomous intelligence in action. And the way to do this is using AI to prepare your data for AI. You have data agents work as an intelligent workforce, leveraging the ontology autonomously so that you can identify, classify, and map data from disparate sources, wherever they are. You can enforce consistency, resolve conflicts within data sets, and enrich data by applying context, the contextual relationships from the ontology. And the key is the data agents will operate across every stage of the data lifecycle, transforming raw inputs into meaningful AI-ready outputs. Now, I can go deeper into this because my vision is that you'll have an AI data token factory where you got scalable data output being produced in a real-time basis all the time, industrializing the pipeline to produce data tokens, modular, reusable, interoperable units of structured data that adhere to your organization's ontology, that carry built-in metadata for traceability, compliance, and explainability, and are tailored for seamless integration into AI workflows and models. It's an ontologically driven end-to-end integration. Now, that's a mouthful, I know, and I know you'll have questions, but it's just a couple of practical things you can do right away. Number one, you got to make data governance a priority, right? You got to think about this concept of your ontology and data lineage tracking. Number two, you need to unify your data across the silos. I'm not saying you're going to get rid of all the silos; they're still there, but you can use a data fabric, a data mesh. You can use the structure I've talked about to integrate both structured and unstructured data. And third, you've got to ensure data quality, because the AI will act on the data that you train it on. So you're going to need to automate data cleansing and enrichment with AI-driven tools. The beauty, I've been talking about this for 30 years, and it's hard. And so many organizations have really struggled. In the past, the projects, they die of their own weight because they're so hard and so resource intensive. And so people settle for good enough. You can't settle for good enough when you're using your data with AI. All right.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. Just one question on that note also, but what you were mentioning are internal data, but sometimes we need also external data to be like integrated or imported about weather, about the economy, about regulations, about so many data coming from the suppliers, the vendors. How are we going also to ensure the accuracy, the reliability, the availability of these data for decision making in real time, or like for accountability, transparency, and efficiency? And also, how can synthetic data like help overcome all these challenges?
Well, that's several questions in one, Mohammed. You certainly have thought about this a lot. So, look, with regard to external data, you have to think about it in the same way, right? You need to have reliable, trustworthy sources. It's funny that you talk about the weather. So we're really good about weather in the past and weather in the future. How many jobs are there where we can be wrong half the time and keep our jobs? And such is the data about weather forecast, right? So, I mean, that's the problem with forecasting. It's about the future. But seriously, we have to apply the same approaches and think about how our internal data relates to the external data, and that does become part of the ontology. The first thing I will expand on is the extended enterprise, right? You need to work with your suppliers, and you need to work, you have to think about your customers to make sure that that data, the overall data ontology, is congruent and put together. Now, when you're bringing in other types of data that are assembled for sale or used or whatever, there it's going to take diligence, and you're going to have to put in the same type of testing that you might do for your own data periodically to stay on top of it, to make sure that you do have the most trustworthy sources. And one of the things that it's very clear to me is that data providers in multiple domains, multiple topics are going to become even more prevalent, even more important in this world of AI. So not every organization needs to be the expert in every type of data. It's going to be a network, right? But you will be responsible for how you use that data and what you do to confirm its trustworthiness. Now, you mentioned synthetic data. We could spend 90 minutes talking about this, so I won't do that. But yes, synthetic data could help, right? So it can help by enhancing your privacy issues, reducing bias, expanding data sets. And there's a lot of work being done to produce synthetic data when you either can't use or don't have enough real data. But there's a lot of risks associated with synthetic data. And I'm not sure where I come down. I think that there's a time and a place for it. And in the near term, we're going to see it used a lot. But in the longer term, the risk may outweigh the benefits. We'll see. I mean, there's issues around the lack of true variability in synthetic data that's generated based on an existing data set of world patterns or rules. It may not capture the full diversity of real world data. And that means you're going to reinforce bias, right? And you're going to have data distribution mismatches, right? The AI may perform well in some context, but not all. You might get model overfitting, where it's really good for that synthetic pattern, but it has an inability to adapt to real world noise. You'll raise different ethical and compliance risks, right? So synthetic data is often promoted as a way to get around privacy issues, but regulatory bodies, like the GDPR and the EU AI, they're still really evaluating how to think about it and whether or not it's actually providing that privacy protection, right? Anyway, there's different problems, different challenges in evaluating the data quality. There's also the computational and resource cost associated with generating high quality synthetic data. And there's also domain specific limitations, especially in medical and financial data. So yes, it's a part of the toolkit, but it is not a panacea.
Sir Muhammad, you're silent, mute.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So if you want to go to the next level, let's say we would like to go into this journey and integrate AI within our organization or company. So how are we going to build AI capabilities? Are we going to do it in-house, or purchase AI solution that is ready on shelf, or search for a consultant or a partner, a global provider? So what is the best recipe for that, let's say? And, because also since we are operating mainly in the MENA region and the GCC, we know that we have like specific regulations that needs to be taken into consideration. So how are we going to design our roadmap of AI integration, our strategy for AI integration?
There's, generally speaking, there's sort of three options, right? And then there's hybrids. So there's building in-house AI, there's buying AI solutions, off-the-shelf AI products, or I say buy, leasing them, renting them in the cloud. And there's partnering with, consultants or AI providers, the hybrid approach. And they all have their advantages and they all have their downsides, right? Building in-house AI is going to work the best for large enterprises with AI expertise or the resources to build it internally. In this regard, I mean, think about banks, telecom, energy, government. Have the ability to build that. It does require heavy investment in data scientists, computing infrastructure, and ongoing R&D, right? But the advantage is that you have full control of your own AI capabilities and your intellectual property. You can buy solutions, right? And it is almost impossible to keep up with the number of startups that have new off-the-shelf AI products. I spend a fair amount of my time every week, just trying to stay up on the what's the cutting edge, what are the new things that happen, and it takes a team to do that. It takes AI to do it, put AI on top of it, digest it, and tell you about it. But anyway, buying solutions, this is the fastest way to deploy, the fastest way to get experience, fastest way to tap into proven models. And the risk is that you have less ability to customize. You have vendor risk about their viability, their long-term viability. And you might also get what I call vendor lock-in, where you get comfortable with a vendor and a solution while others are leapfrogging past them. And then partnering with AI providers, sort of a hybrid approach. I think this is ideal for an organization that needs custom solutions, that wants to be involved in the game, but doesn't have all the internal expertise it needs, right? So you can collaborate with consulting firms, with the hyperscalers, Microsoft, Google, and there in the GCC, they're building regional AI capabilities, regional AI hubs. So there's lots of capability there. So, Mohammed, you might say, okay, well, how do I determine the best strategy, right? Especially in a region like the Middle East with sovereign AI ambitions, right? I think depending on your organization, right, what's your AI maturity? Do you have in-house expertise? What are the regulatory considerations? Their data sovereignty laws are going to be key here, which could limit external AI partnerships, right? And then do you want speed to deploy or customization or some combination? So you look at that. For most enterprises, it should be some combination of these alternatives, especially in the stage that we're in right now, where we're only 1% into the journey of AI, right? And knowing that Middle East governments are investing heavily in sovereign AI strategies to reduce dependence on foreign AI providers, right? This could create a unique opportunity for regional AI champions to emerge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that this is very interesting because also we were discussing last week about stepping back, the importance of stepping back, taking a step back to reflect, retreat, to reflect and think and redesign our governance framework, our strategy, not to have a dedicated AI strategy, but to integrate the AI within our framework as a whole, within our strategy as a whole. So we really invite the boards, the executives at a certain point to make this step back and this retreat and to rethink their overall framework or strategy and how it will be integrated across the board, not in a silo manner.
So, Mohammed, I mean, we're going to go into a new section now, right? We're going to talk about AI features, solutions, some technical aspects, and Bilal has shared with our audience some questions that they should ponder as we go through this. We may not hit them all directly, but we're going to touch on them, right? So,
Yeah.
Really think about. We talked about data already. Think about whether AI projects are being held back because of data issues. Ask yourself, could AI create black box decisions that are impossible to audit or defend? As AI becomes integral in risk management, could a next competitive advantage be AI-powered risk intelligence? And could AI itself be the best defense against AI-generated threats? So I'll hand it back to you, Mohammed, for the next question.
Yeah, thank you. Now, many companies claim they have AI governance in place. So, but is it really governance or only a checkbox of compliance, like a checklist of compliance?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. Some enterprises indeed do claim that they have AI governance in place. But as we mentioned earlier, most are not close to where they need to be, right? Leaders, participants here on the call, ask yourselves, do we really have effective AI governance? Or as Mohammed put it, or is it really just some form of check the box compliance? So my observation is where AI governance stands today in general is that it's still in the early stages, and that there's some common issues that are delaying the sort of moving forward in a robust way. One is that it often gets treated as a legal formality, the what do we have to do. Another is there's a number of organizations where the policies exist, they've been documented, but they're not yet into real enforcement of those policies. And maybe also related to the legal perspective is AI governance is generally been reactive so far, and because there's not a lot of regulation that's been formalized, right? It means that it's not as complete as it needs to be. So, well, a checkbox compliance could include just relying on point-in-time AI audits instead of having continuous monitoring, or just having generic policies that don't align well with AI-specific applications. And I think it's really important that to have real AI governance, you got to have clear accountability. You got to have ongoing monitoring of AI behavior because it's going to change over time. It doesn't stay because it's continually learning. And AI, it can't be an add-on. It can't be something that lives on the side of existing corporate governance structures. It needs to become an integral part. It's not something that you do some of the time. It becomes a part of what you do. It becomes embedded in your enterprise risk management, your board oversight, and your internal controls. So, I mean, I think that there's good reason that organizations are where they want to be and where they need to be. A lack of AI expertise in the governance teams, fragmented ownership, whose responsibility is it? And probably most of all, the speed of AI development.
And how this will shape the governance framework. So how will it look like to be actually very effective?
Well, I think about 4 legs on this stool, right? Clear accountability and oversight, full AI lifecycle governance and risk controls, transparency, explainability, and ethical AI principles, which are clearly articulated and communicated, and of course, compliance with regulations and industry standards. Now, you notice I put that one last. I think they're all equally important, but it's not just a matter of that number 4, right? On the accountability and oversight, AI governance will fail without well-defined roles and responsibilities. It just will. And one suggestion I have is I'm a real believer in a cross-functional AI governance council that meets regularly with clear policies for approving, auditing, and intervening when necessary. On life cycle governance and risk controls, emphasis on the life cycles. AI risks don't just emerge when you deploy, they exist throughout the AI life cycle. And you have to do different things at different stages. And not a unique phrase, but a governance by design. I know there's a number of professional service firms that use this concept in their work. Governance by design, where every AI model must pass a pre-launch review, continuous monitoring, and risk-based approval gates before going into production. And transparency, explainability, and ethical AI, right? This is going to require that, simply put, that organizations can explain their AI decisions to their customers, their employees, their stakeholders, and to the regulators, right? So this starts with a commitment to AI transparency, where you document your AI decision-making processes and you embrace audits when and where necessary. And on the 4th point, your AI system should be documented, traceable, and legally defensible, with mechanisms in place to demonstrate your compliance before the regulators demand it. So there's a lot of work to do. AI governance must be proactive, not reactive. And that's the best way to reduce regulatory risk and reputational risk. It's the best way to improve trust and transparency and to gain a competitive advantage over your competitors.
Yeah. So, as I understand what you are saying, Mr. Lee, it's clearly that it's a pathway, it's a journey where we might face lots of risks. And how are we going to deal with these risks? How are we going to identify these risks and to effectively be ready for all these risks? I see this Mr. Mohannad Gazo, maybe he's raising his hand. If you have a relevant question, please feel free to do.
I think it's a bit, hi everyone. I think it's a bit relevant. My question is, do you think AI, if it continues to advance, could eventually replace consultancy roles, leading to the disappearance of firms like the Big Four? This is my question.
Yeah, I will defer it to our next section because we will be talking about how it will reshape our professional activities, and we will answer your questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you.
So going back to the risks, Mr. Lee.
Yeah. So look, AI is definitely a double-edged sword, right? AI can reduce risk, but it can also create new risk. It can help us manage risk in fraud, cybersecurity, compliance, but it can create risk that we might underestimate. So I'll share, let me just Some of the ones you may have heard of, common ones that are talked about a lot. Model drift and hidden biases, right? AI models degrade over time, leading, that could lead to an unreliable decision. New data could change what the right decision or what the right answer is, right? There have been a lot of issues with regard to AI-driven hiring tools found to reinforce, old biases. Hidden bias is not a good thing. So model drift, hidden biases, adversarial attacks. Earlier, I mentioned, someone getting into our supply chain system and hacking it and feeding it deceptive inputs, right? AI-powered trading systems could be exploited to create chaos. Legal and liability issues, depending on the area where you are working, and the over reliance on AI, getting complacent, right? And a fifth one, I put this one near the top of my list. I believe that adoption risks, meaning that your workforce, your people, your customers, your suppliers, where there's pushback, where there's resistance to change. This is human nature. And I believe that there's a number of AI projects that have failed because of the resistance to the change. So how do you mitigate these? Continuous AI auditing, AI risk committees and councils, human in the loop safeguards, cross-functional collaboration, and a focus on value through all the stages. I know we're about an hour in here, Mohammed. I do want to share a couple of things that maybe the audience hasn't thought about yet in terms of some emerging risks that you don't see as widely discussed, at least not yet. One is what I call AI-powered cognitive manipulation, behavioral engineering, using AI to shape human decisions, subtly influencing behavior beyond what most leaders would recognize. Well, AI-driven personalization is widely accepted in marketing, right? The real risk is AI-driven persuasion that subtly rewires human cognition over time, leading to unintentional shifts and unintended consequences. This could be dangerous. AI created dark data, the synthetic data issue, right? AI creates vast amounts of synthetic data and new relationships among data sets. Well, no one really knows who owns it, who governs it, or how reliable it is. Mohammed, I heard you were about to add a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we still have 10 minutes before opening the floor for questions. So I wanted to shift to our final section related to leaders and AI.
Very good.
Yeah. So talking about leaders and their role and, leading this project for the future. So AI is transforming jobs for sure, but how can leaders really ensure that it will augment rather than replace their workforce? How to manage this anxiety that we are seeing now in the workforce?
Yeah. Well, it's so true. Leaders are worried about how AI will change their workforce, how it will impact their people. And they're rightly concerned about understanding both the risks and the opportunities, right? And they want to know how to prepare their workforce for this transformation. So there's a big risk, right? AI will automate repetitive, process-driven jobs, right? Leading to job displacement in some areas, like data entry, customer service, routine work in the legal world, in the financial world. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time as we're in that transition, it will create new opportunities, jobs requiring creativity, strategy, AI oversight, leading to demand for new roles. I read a statistic the other day that 80% of the jobs that will be created in the next 5 years don't exist today. Think about that. Well, that's great. How do we prepare the people that are in the workforce now that are affected for that, right? In the near term, AI won't just replace jobs. It'll augment roles. But in those routine tasks, if the workers don't embrace using AI to make their performance better, they'll be the ones at most risk. AI won't replace people. It'll replace people that don't use AI. How can leaders prepare their workforce? Shift from thinking about job replacement to job augmentation now. Don't wait. Don't wait until it's a very clear roadmap. Experiment, right? AI can enhance productivity. If you're a user of generative AI, you know this already, even if your organization hasn't officially embraced it, right? Don't think about eliminating roles right now. Invest in AI literacy at all levels. Non-technical employees need to understand AI's impact on their work, right? The most valuable employees are going to be those that can evolve with and alongside AI.
Yeah, and I think this will also be shaping all our recruitment, retention, attraction strategies for our HR, for our workforce, for our people, our training plans. So this is the whole, let's say, transformation at the HR level.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and if a leader had to take just one like decision or step towards AI readiness now, and to lead this journey with his team, with his organization, with the board, what should he be doing?
Well, I think the one step, if I only got one, Mohammed, is develop an AI strategy that's aligned with your business goals and your societal goals, right? It isn't just about experimenting and chasing trends and playing with the cool stuff. It's about solving specific business, customer, and societal challenges. Put the focus there. And I don't think it's too common right now to see a well-developed AI strategy. I know that strategy will evolve and change over time, but you've got to start somewhere. So develop a clear AI objective, right? Wherever you sit in the organization, build your AI roadmap and foster a culture of AI curiosity, right? Be a good example of that. Demonstrate your own curiosity and use AI in every way that you can.
See that Mrs. Rania also asked about the ethical aspect about AI. So it's always seen as a compliance issue, but it's also a responsibility. So how our leadership should be like driving this strategy, designing this strategy, and driving this integration, taking into consideration as a priority the ethical perspective.
I love this question, and some business leaders might think that this is somebody else's responsibility, that it's above their position or above their pay grade. I think a lot about, we've been talking about the worker impact, but there's other ethical aspects too, right? What we talk about, the alignment challenge, making sure that AI is being used in a way that aligns with the values of our society. And we talk about containing, preventing, or minimizing its bad uses, right? That's everyone's responsibility. And I know that seems like, wow, how can I impact that? It's not just about compliance. It is a core leadership responsibility. As we do our own AI strategies and our own AI deployments, even though we think they're small, we should always be thinking about the ethical aspects here. It will include the issues around if we're an organization and we have employees and workers that have been with us for years or decades, how do we manage that transition in an ethical manner? That's a fair question. And it's our responsibility collectively to address it and not just wait for what compliance says, right? And, so yes, it has to be. Ethical failures in AI, can lead to public backlash, reputational risk. Leadership must ensure that AI is fair, explainable, and trustworthy. That has to be foundational.
Yeah. I will leave the final thoughts for you, Lee, before opening the floor for the questions.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. You know, I think that we're all in this together. There's a Bilal, would you put that collaboration slide up, the puzzle? I want to, I was talking about AI alignment and containment. There's a secret sauce to this ethical question, which by the way is relevant in every part of the world, right? And I think that secret sauce is collaboration. Collaboration between government and business, between business and academia, and all the above. I think there's challenges that can only be addressed when all of these elements of society are working toward a common end. Yes, we've got business competition. Yes, we have regional and national competition. But some of these questions are higher order questions that we need to learn from each other. We should not dismiss any questions. So I am a big proponent of finding these multiple ways for us to collaborate among government and business and academia to reach a societal benefit, to deal with the alignment challenges, and to deal with the containment challenges around AI.
Super. Thank you very much, Lee, for all your thoughts and the wealth of information. Indeed, I'm sure that we can spend like a full journey, full like 4 hours or 6 hours course about this. And we're planning for something like that with governance dynamics. So hopefully we will keep you all up to date about this. I will leave you with Bilal for the questions that were posted on the Q&A and also for some live questions.
Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for this very informative webinar. Before I open the floor for questions, I would like if the participants can take a few moments to answer our feedback form after we are finished. Okay, if you can please, I just shared it in the chat box. I'm gonna quickly start with a few questions from the Q&A, and if we can answer them so that we can, anyone who wants to participate can raise their hand, and then we can have maybe some live questions, some questions from the Q&A and from chat. So to start off, James asks, compared to other parts of the world, what are the key challenges and opportunities that the Middle East faces in AI adoption, especially considering factors like infrastructure, data security, and regional socioeconomic needs? He also asked another question kind of related to it, where if you can share some examples of case studies from the Middle East where AI initiatives have successfully addressed local challenges like energy, healthcare, and etc. And what lessons may be applied both regionally and globally?
Mohammed, you want to start that? Being the local expert.
Yeah, actually, we are working with so many clients and partners in the region, UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So we can see that the energy sector, the banking sector, are leading the way. Healthcare is not that mature yet at this level. But it is in the minds and in the plans of all the leadership in these organizations. Yet I can say fairly that financial institutions, banking sector, and energy sector are really taking serious steps into the integration of either, as Lee was saying, either in-house solutions or like hybrid blended solutions. Yeah, and we have some softwares or solutions that are being tested from the US and from other countries that can be also, fully aligned with the requirements in the GCC and the MENA region. I think the infrastructure is not very far. And it's being ready very fast for this, either in the UAE or in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of investment going into AI in that part of the world is staggering. And the focus of the national governments is extremely impressive. I mean, at a recent AI conference, they had like 30,000 attendants putting things on show. But your question is a good one about the practical things. I think there's things happening behind the scenes that won't be as dramatic as some. For example, the optimization of hydrocarbons and the ability to use AI to optimize the production of other compounds that are even more valuable than the oil that comes out. So that's happening right now, real time. Not as sexy, not as dramatic, but clearly happening. And I think that the collectively, the Middle East is going to attract a lot of talent and a lot of interest. I mean, I do know that in most of the countries, the average age is quite young, and therefore you're going to have a lot of computer literate, programming literate people there, which is different than in some societies around the world. So I'm extremely bullish on the opportunity if it's well directed and well focused and is inclusive in how it brings people into the game.
Perfect. We have another question from Captain Lava Sudevan. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Can you share a few strategies that can define guardrails for AI implementation? And how do you assess risk between closed network and open network AI models?
Well, on the first one, what I believe is important, whatever the AI experiment, project, solution is that there's a framework you put on it. You say, you identify the risks before you start working on it. You identify the tests that you're going to do to assess those risks. You identify if there are standards that are relevant. You identify if there are laws, rules, and regulations that are relevant. You do that in the beginning. It becomes a part of the scoping, right? And don't forget all that emphasis I made on the data. You definitely do an assessment of the data readiness and do what you need to get it on. It isn't just jump in and let's start doing the model, whether it's a machine learning model or a chat bot or a local LLM. It doesn't matter. Is that the guardrails? It's, I hate to say it's not rocket science to do this. It's about defining what they are, right? And then doing those things and documenting those things. This is what we as GRC professionals know how to do. It's just that we have to think about doing it in different contexts and maybe doing some different things, right? Doing different things, doing things differently, but the principles are still the same, right? I believe that transparency is very important, which means that inside the organization, you want to share both, the wins and the losses, the successes and the failures, so that you can collectively learn. We don't know how this all turns out. So sort of embracing our lack of perfection right now is actually a strength. It's an important attribute so that we can go look at it. I mean, it frustrates me to know that something like 90% of AI projects never get deployed. Where is the gap? What's the root cause of that? Or perhaps that's what was expected, right? Maybe it was expected that in this early stage, we'd only have that. Or maybe we didn't put up all the guardrails we needed, right? Maybe it was an adoption issue. Maybe there was pushback. Maybe a part of the organization that the solution was built for didn't want it or didn't believe in it. or didn't trust the data. I don't know. So
yeah, if I may add, I love just to highlight something that this is really not rocket science, as Lee was saying, but it's also a complex project. So we need, with lots of uncertainties and ambiguous or like hidden spots, as we mentioned in the beginning. So we need to have an exploratory, cautious testing approach where we test the waters where we are walking into, and to also test the usability and the readiness of everyone, and to ensure that it will be effectively adopted later on.
yeah,
Just I wanted to add this, Bilal, for you.
yeah, and Mohammed, what that takes is a cross-functional collaboration, right? Where there's a respect for the people that understand risk, right? To be able to raise questions that the data scientist, doesn't just dismiss because of what their expertise is, right? Now, Bilal, the second part of that question, you're going to have to read back to me.
Hang on. The second part of the question was, how do you assess risk between closed network and open network AI models?
Well, if you're talking about the use of open source models, I mean the security aspect is a function of how you set up the infrastructure. It's how close to the edge you put it, whether it's in your infrastructure or you're putting it in a cloud situation where the cloud providers are the large cloud providers are the best about. They have to provide just fantastic security. So, I mean, I'm not biased one way or the other. I do think that evolutionary, what we're going to see is a movement toward, AI on device, on the edge. We're going to see not large language models, but small language models, right? There's a startup called Liquid AI, which has developed a new approach, which is not as computationally intensive as the large LLMs in the generative AI world, right? So, and I think that's what we're going to see, where you have less. It's less about the scale and more about the focus and the solution. So we're going to be going in both directions. We're going to be going bigger, 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 and smaller, smaller, smaller at the same time, right? And we have to embrace both of those things. And we're going to go open source and closed source at the same time. And I think there's a role for all the above.
Perfect. Thank you, Lee. I just want to answer a few quick questions that I can do that. Will certificates of attendance be issued? Yes, to all attendees. The meeting is recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel for everyone to see. We will be sending you the link along with your certificate of attendance. Please make sure that you sign in using your actual name so that the certificate of attendance can go out in your name. So quickly from the chat, do you think AI, if it continues to advance, could eventually replace consultancy roles? Oh, he asked that. Sorry, that's Mohammed. So that was one of his questions. Do you think it can actually replace consultancy roles, leading to the disappearance of like the big four, what have you? If we can answer it quickly so that I can open the chat for more questions.
No, yeah. So look, the big four aren't going to go away, but they're going to use AI. All right. So all the big four and all the large professional services firms are building their agents. They will have an agentic workforce. The expectation of their clients is that they will use agents to drive efficiency and effectiveness and to solve new problems without having to raise rates as much. So you're going to see the professional service world totally transformed, not go away, not go away, believe me. But what they will be doing in 5 years will not resemble what they do today. That's my prediction.
Okay, sounds good. I also wanted to take just a moment to open the chat for anyone who would like to raise their hand and ask a direct question live. So please go ahead, raise your hand if you have any question. I know there are a few more questions here and there, but please go ahead, raise your hands. Let's see.
Hello, if you do not get any hands, you could put that last slide up that I gave you, and
I will.
can make some comments if we're sure we don't have any open questions.
I do have some open questions, but most of them are through the chat. Most of them are through the chat. So so Iman asks, what about AI and academic system and research?
Oh, well, I mean, AI and even before we get quantum computers, the ability to use quantum algorithms, with the current types of compute that we have right now. I mean, this is a game changer. Academic research is going to be put in hyperdrive, right? The ability to ask and answer questions, it's not one at a time or 10 at a time, it's a million at a time, right? This is it's mind-boggling to conceive of that we can. I mean, look what happened in the protein folding, what was considered the most complicated algorithmic analytic exercise like ever. We have now mastered the folding of all known proteins and now have the ability to design proteins. We don't, AI does, right? We can. So yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, research is going to be on steroids.
Yeah, I just want to add to Lee answering this question that the barriers and the difficulties that we were facing in research, especially in data collection, data cleaning, and data analysis, will be streamlined and optimized with AI in a blink of an eye, especially qualitative data. I know that in academic world, as Iman was asking about, it's easily we can manage quantitative data and we can use Excel. Now we can use AI. It's easy. But the pain was in qualitative data. And now we will be able to find out trends, keywords, behaviors, patterns, and understand all these aspects within the qualitative data in a very effective manner.
Yeah. Bonnie asks, how can we truly know if our data is ready for successful use of AI?
Oh, I love that question. Well, you got to define what ready is in your organization. You got to understand sort of the data quality attributes that matter to you in your context, in your industry, your sector, your company, and then you have to go after them. For me, this goes back to that data assessment and the ontology type approach, where we put intelligence into the we put intelligence into the data, right? And we can do that now. The technology exists to do that. And you may say, "Oh, that's too big of a project." Well, break it into pieces. Start with a use case, use the ontology, see how it works. It could be about understanding risk in a bank, understanding where you stand with regard to your ability to loan more money. It could be about pulling together your reporting for in the EU, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which is extremely difficult to comply with. Pick a use case, use the approach, get that experience of how it makes things better, faster, cheaper.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. Mrs. Rania asks, she thinks there's a bit of an ethical question with regards to AI. What would people who lose their jobs do? How will they earn a living? Some of the people most affected, for example, routine jobs, drivers, etc., may not have the education and skill set to finance or to retain or to train, or to retrain into AI geared jobs. What are your views on this?
Well, this time it's happening faster, but it's not the first time in society when whole jobs have disappeared, right? It's not. So go back and look at some old pictures of cities 125 years ago, and you'll see horses everywhere, right? and you will see people whose job it is to clean up after the horses, right? And that employed a lot of people. It was for a long time. What's that?
Ice makers.
Oh yeah, exactly. So the weaving, right, used to be a human skill, and then it became automated. I could go on, right? So some people that do some jobs won't be doing those jobs in their lifetimes. And some people may have a harder time with the transition than others. But overall, our responsibility is to provide avenues that can help find other things to do. There will be many the service world will not stop being important, right? Well, I have a son who's in the hospitality business, hotel business. His wife is too. And in that industry, people are going to still want to stay in the hotels and still travel and still have personal service, right? So there's going to be change. I don't have a magic answer that solves every individual's problem. It has happened before. Sometimes the jobs are in a different place. Sometimes the jobs are in a different industry. Sometimes the jobs require a different skill. There are gaps. There's a lack of nurses in the US in many parts of our country, in the United States. There's gaps in other areas because the people that have the skills are living somewhere other than where the opportunities are. So this is another dimension of that. And I think we will come up with pathways, but there will be stories of people that are feeling disenfranchised. But we can't put the genie back in the bottle here. We can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. This is coming. And one of the leaders who I really admire, Peter Diamandis, Peter says that there's two types of organizations. That one type will be using AI, effectively by the end of the decade, and the others will be out of business.
Wow.
Excellent.
Well,
So
thank you
I'll
very
open the
much. Thank you very much, Lee and Bilal, for this really, really exciting, as Iman mentioned, topic and webinar. Thank you very much again for the wealth of information that we tried to funnel within this 90 minutes webinar. Please stay posted, stay tuned for our LinkedIn and social media, because we will be posting about our next webinar in March. It's specifically about the latest internal audit regulations and standards, and it will be posted with all the information needed. Stay tuned also, because we will have something related to data readiness and to AI integration workshops and training. So thank you very much. And again, thank you, Mr. Lee.
my pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
Have a nice
Bye.
evening.
Bye-bye.